Yeah. So during that event, we gathered together and we looked into gaming and play and how it can be applied to futures thinking, or the foresight discipline. And in during that event, I would say that Darwin, that's where he introduced the Lego series play. He actually conducted a game with us so that we could learn the actual process of Lego series play, and he was able to integrate different disciplines. Actually, yes, it's about Lego series play, but the whole approach was transdisciplinary. So I would say that that's one word that I would describe Darwin: transdisciplinary. He integrates service design, innovation,
Mm.
serious play, visual thinking, and of course, futures thinking and insight. And he does this to help individuals, teams, and different organizations to figure out the different problems that they're facing. So that's one thing about Darwin. No? He's transdisciplinary, and then that's where I met him. But
Mm.
then after that event, I asked for his help because I was so curious about Lego Serious Play, and he was so generous and so kind to actually conduct a session with my, because I also started an advertising agency called 𝐓𝐫𝐾reatives, and I asked him to conduct a Lego Series Play session with our leaders just to explore strategy using that particular process or tool. And it was an amazing experience. I think the way I would describe it or capture it in just one word is, I think, intuition. Throughout that process, we were able to harness into intuition and then turn it into actual insights and strategy, insights or
Mm.
understanding about ourselves that wouldn't really come off if we approached it in the traditional, rational way. So the prompts of play, of tactile experiences with Lego actually helped us tap into our intuition to put together something that we wouldn't have um put together without it. No, because of that, no, his background really is, he's the founder and principal consultant of PXD Labs. It's based in Singapore, and they provide help in business strategy and design to multinational companies, and both here in the Philippines and also, of course, around the world. So transdisciplinary and intuition. And then lastly, just recently, in my advertising work, where the advent of AI, the profit margins are getting lower. So we wanted to develop another revenue stream. So we wanted to get into consultancy. So of course, I asked for his help. He's someone that is, I would say, the expert in this field.
Oh,
He's
no, 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 no.
no, he's been
Yeah.
no, I guess someone that I look up to because
Yep.
he's been into the agency world for 20 years in digital marketing, and
Oh,
he
and
has
that ages me now. That's gonna date me, Sass. Oh my goodness. Yes. 20 years. No, no, that's good. Yeah. Continue on. Sorry.
yeah, so Darwin, again, if you uh remember three things about Darwin: transdisciplinary, and then he'll help you harness intuition for
Mm.
strategy and insights. And at the end, he's an expert. He has long and wide experience in digital marketing and consultancy as well.
Okay. This will be a disadvantage for me. Having experimented with how we introduce each other and you starting off, I think what's nice is that whilst you're introducing me, you're also introducing yourself. So it gives me a bit of a leeway. Like, I guess you guys have picked up Arman mentioning, and thank you for that. Thank you for the intro, because I really wanted to hear also from the perspective of another, like how someone would describe me based on, a very formal CV. But I think what's nice with SAS is that we met and worked somehow together in this AIM project, and that started off this very young friendship that I could define. And what interested me with SAS is that you mentioned transdisciplinarian or the transdisciplinarity in how he would describe me. Ako naman, it just slipped. How I would describe SAS is multi-hyphenated, because you have a founder, a media founder, branding expert, strategy expert, and the likes. But you also have this social enterprise heart that maybe not a lot of people would know. And that's probably where we would focus later on Tindagat, which is a social enterprise that he helms. And interestingly, I met him in an academic institution like the Asian Institute of Management, which I think also, when you look at his profile, he's a lifelong learner. That's how I would describe it. And I think that's where the connection that I have with him when we were talking about Lego Serious Play and beyond that after. And so that's why I offered to do Lego Serious Play with his team. And the more that I played with his team, it also showed who he is as a leader of the team. Unfortunately, I haven't seen him in action with Tindagat, and maybe this is where we have this opportunity to see him in action or hear about plans and what Tindagat is. And I think that's a sort of like the key takeaway there with SAS, when how to describe him in this as a lifelong learner, multi-hyphenated. In fact, he was just in a conference on sustainability before he jumped in here. So that tells you about the wide-ranging interest that he has. So we could go on and on about describing ourselves and probably our interest, but I'm curious because there are a few friends of SAS and myself in the crowd. So maybe just a few minutes of like piping in terms of the interest that you have in terms of having this conversation on getting unstuck using transition design before we probably segue into this conversation around transition design and all the other elements that are revolving around that. So, it's a fairly informal gathering, if I may add. So it's a conversation between us and amongst each other. So maybe that's an invitation for anyone on the ones listening in right now, in terms of like what is the interest, what's the pull for you guys in joining us in this conversation? Hi, Yen.
Hi, maybe I'll just start off because
Yes, Yen.
I need to head off in an hour's time at
Okay.
hard stop at 7.
Okay.
So I think I've seen your series play sessions from time to time on Eventbrite, Darwin's, and I've always been curious to stay engaged and see how you evolve your work. But I suppose what really made me curious about transition design, as a little bit of a background, I'm an architect by training, and I dabbled with a little bit of social innovation work years ago. And I've just stayed, in tune with the space here and there. But I think I've found through my professional arena that I still very much like to stay engaged in design and design thinking. So I'm just really curious what transition design truly means. I know it's going to be quite specific, just because the context that Darwin and Armand basically come from is the social enterprise spaces. But I often think that it could always be applied across the board, in terms of thinking.
Yes,
So
indeed.
that's what brought me here today. Not too sure what to expect, not expecting anything. Maybe that's the best way to start.
Indeed, I love that, and I think I've seen you and your name in LinkedIn, and it's good to finally put a face to the name and welcome, and probably have more. But yeah, indeed, I think with transition design, was also my interest when Sas mentioned this in one of our conversation. I said, hang on, stop, because I need to double click on transition design, and because that's I'm a very curious person, and that's why I said, maybe let's have this conversation, invite other people around us who we know or who we don't know, maybe interested in transition design, or that's how probably this one evolved. So yeah, we'll talk about that. And what's nice, I think, is that aside from the theoretical aspect of transition design, that which we are likely going to touch, we see it in application. And so our mind is also going to be challenged in terms of like, hey, maybe this is something that I can do in XYZ in the projects that I'm doing. So that's the goal, see where we're at. But well noted, hard stop, half an hour, and probably we'll cover more, a bit more, definitely,
Awesome.
before that hour ends. Thank
Thanks
you,
for having me.
Yen.
Thank you,
Brilliant.
Yen.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go next.
Yes, Jen.
Okay. Why am I here? I'm in an exploratory phase.
Okay.
Right. It's like I didn't stop anyway. I'm looking for a new field of thought. Because I'm sort of in the intersection of psychology, design, and technology. So those are the fields that I've dabbled in the past and currently. And so I want this to be transition design to be part of the thinking mix where I'm right now. So let's see how it goes.
Yes.
So I'm on the psychology part of the thinking right now. So I don't know how it'll play out, but I'm really very interested on how this has evolved, Darwin, from the different stuff that we went into in the past. So yeah, I'll be very interested to find out. So very open.
Yeah. No, I think that's fairly good, because I think, just a context, Jeng and I go way back.
20 plus years already.
Yeah. So we met in a technology department in a pharmaceutical company, but then I think this is the where we overlap in the many things that we're interested. We're very curious persons. Super. And Jeng, anyway, she is another interesting individual that you might want to link up with. So I suggest everyone to also drop their LinkedIn profile in the chat and connect with each other. Thanks, Jeng. I think this would be interesting, because totally I don't have anything, no prior knowledge when I heard Sas talk about transition design. So we're in the same, I think almost all of us, maybe Sas is like 2 paces ahead of us, having encountered transition design and applied it in Tindagat, and which is the story that we want to like unpack today. So let's do that. So I know, in the interest of time, and also having heard Yen talk about hard stop, which now prompts us with a bit of a sort of like the next sort of like conversation block. How I think we could evolve. Oh yeah, Albert. Sorry, I had to. Yes, we will probably circle back later and do a bit more of this connecting whilst we're consuming this content. But I think I wanted to pull Sas back into this conversation and really for him to talk about, let's situate Tindagat first, like understand the context of Tindagat. And in my mind, how we can probably collectively design this conversation or this learning experience that we are in is, let's talk about Tindagat, where they were before Sas and the team encountered transition design. And so in that context, we will understand from Sas what is transition design, and so forth, and see where we collectively push forward in terms of, do we need to learn anything more, or collectively are we now on the side, like Googling transition design, what is that one, and then have this very nice collective conversation, and so we'll unpin ourselves. But to SAS, I think maybe SAS, if you can help us out, like situate the conversation around Tindagat, what it is. As far as we know, it's a social enterprise, but though, let's look at the 5 Ws in the 2 H's: the what, the why, when, who, and where, right? And then how things are operating with Tindagat.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Darwin. Thanks everyone for sharing earlier. All right. When we started, or maybe even just a couple of months ago, running a social enterprise or running a startup, actually, you'll encounter a crisis of identity, I would say. Because you want to do a lot of things, and you're actually doing a lot of things, and you're talking to many different stakeholders. So when you're introducing your organization or what you do or your business, you tend to just talk about your organization, at least one aspect of it, to a specific audience, or
Yeah.
to who you're talking to, right? But if you're asked to introduce your organization, you can actually say many things, right? We're multi-hyphenated, we're transdisciplinary,
Yeah.
we're social enterprise, we sell frozen fresh seafood, we help fisher folk with post-harvest processing, etc., right? We do product development, we do all different things, right? So
Mm.
I just wanted to point that out, that actually transition design kind of like help us find our identity, at least
Ah.
where where to um where to start when introducing ourselves, or
Mm.
finding out who we can be first, and then we can draw people in and then tell them more about who we are after. So
Wow. Yep.
right now what we do, so before transition design, I would always say, I would consider.
What's your elevator pitch for
So
for Tindagat before TD?
right, it was hard. We were a social, we're a social enterprise. We
Mm.
aim at helping small scale fishers, but I'd have to explain what their
Yes.
problems are, right?
Yes.
Why our solutions actually work, etc. So it was so tedious, it was so hard to explain.
Mm.
But right now the way we do it is that, as Tindagat, we are a marketing platform of communities in small scale fisheries.
Mm.
We introduce ourselves like that
Yep.
because there are already, I guess, connotations or inherent perceptions about small scale fisheries, about
Mm.
communities, that can, um, I guess, provide a way in to
Yep.
introduce the different issues, right? So since we're a marketing platform for communities in small scale fisheries,
Mm.
what we do is we develop grassroots micro value chains. So
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a lot of like jargons in that statement. Let's help, dissect that. What does that mean?
that means that, so when we talk about a value chain or a supply chain, it's from end
Yes.
to end, supply to actually the end user, the end consumer.
Mm. Mm.
From the supply end, we empower fisher folk with value creation capabilities. So from before, they used to just catch the fish and then rely on traders to
Yep.
distribute fish that they get, right? They don't
Yeah.
have power. Um, they don't have access to the market. So
Mm.
usually, just they end up with little economic value. But if you look at the whole value chain, they end up just getting a small percentage of the
Percentage. Yeah. Yep. Understand.
ball. So what we do is that we empower them with more value creation capabilities such as post-harvest processing, so that
Mm.
we give them extra so that they can earn more. So it's not a dole out, it's not charity.
Yep.
You equip them with something that creates value for the end consumer. Because they do the post-harvest processing, because they have the storage at the
Mm.
level,
Yep.
and then also do the logistics already in our micro value chains,
Mm.
our consumers actually get fresher goods.
Could I probably help SAS in like realizing or visualizing this? So if I'm on a seaside village, for example, and there are fisher folks with their bangka, with their boat of fresh harvest, where do you situate Tindagat in that? Okay, they're coming in and with their fresh harvest and boat, and we understand like farm to table, it's really more of like fish to table kind of like value chain after that. So where is Tindagat in that first sort of like journey, so to speak, for fisher folk?
So let me share first, I guess the traditional
Yeah.
supply.
Okay. Sure. Makes sense.
So small scale fishers, they actually borrow the boats
Mm.
of sometimes the first consolidators in their area. So those are the ones the first buyers of,
Yes.
right? So from the first consolidators,
Mm.
the consolidators now will um there's this thing called bulungan in or like
In English is like whispers, but that's a literal translation of that. I know there's context to that, so maybe you want to expand what bulungan means.
so of course they would want to sell the fish at least
Yes,
at the highest bidder.
Peter, of course.
So among the different traders who are sourcing from a specific place.
Mm.
So bulungan is kind of like silent bidding or behind
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
So
There you go.
that's what happens. And then from the trader, so from the fisher to the first consolidator to the next trader who will transport the goods and transfer it to it can possibly be a post-harvest processor.
Yep.
And then after that, a wholesaler, then
Mm.
after that, a retailer, or maybe an institutional buyer, and maybe some in between, some traders in between, no? And then after that, after the retailers, then it ends up
With us,
with you.
consumer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So with us, so we have a local leader, which is actually also a fisher who acts as
Mm.
a customer already.
Yep.
And then consolidator, um, the fish or the seafood that was caught by the fishers get
Mm.
transferred to us, and then we distribute it. We have direct to consumer channels.
Yep.
So that's
That I have seen the website. Yeah, tindagat.ph, the one that you have there. Yep.
we also have a subscription model. Uh,
Mm.
also talk to resellers, and then right now we're trying to get into big retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to distributors, and then also institutional buyers such as restaurants.
Yeah. So what I was hearing a while ago, which was very interesting, is that how you sort of like not disrupted, but more of like inserted yourself as a value proposition is that you have leaders on the ground. Are these leaders that you mentioned like employed by Tindagat, or are they sort of like identified leaders because they probably have the seniority or they have the the good graces of the other fisher folks? So how was it that you identified and you work with them? Because I think that's critical in this sort of like existing design of Tindagat.
Sure. So right now we work with different communities already, but the
Mm,
community that we started with in Lubang Island, Occidental Mindoro, was
mm,
was a community that has been engaged with by an NGO already. which was
Mm.
RARE. RARE is a global nonprofit for marine conservation.
Yeah.
So they were able to help them with financial literacy, set up savings club for them, help them with some policies and practices to help govern some marine protected areas in their area.
Mm.
Of course, instill responsible fishing practices or fisheries management program. There you go. Albert also works with me right now. They've been
Great.
consulted with him.
Yeah.
So it was already a site, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Now, after putting that together, actually there's a gap in the, I would say, no, after working in this space after a while, the gap is after